Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Ladies, gentlemen, friends, foes, lurkers, regulars, GMO people, organic people.
Boiler room inbound. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends and foes, lurkers and regulars, welcome to this broadcast of Boiler Room. We're very glad to have you here with us on this evening. This is a Social Rejects Club meeting for November the 19th, 2024, live broadcasted on alternatecurrentradio.com. We're streaming audio live on Spreaker. We are streaming video live on Rumble, X, and Rockfin. Those just went live, so if you're out there on that Spreaker feed, you can head on over there. Links are up on our Facebook and on Ruckus's X account. I might have reposted it. I can't recall yet. But we got an important broadcast for you. Real quick, go to the website, check out the archives there for Boiler Room, the Daily Ruckus, Odd Man Out podcast, Mystical American Patriot Society, Sunday Wire. All those are freshly updated. We got new episodes up there of all those for you and more. And we got some new things cooking here at Alternate Current Radio. So stay tuned for that. If you want to support us, we got a swear jar, aka our PayPal. Big shout out to our patrons. Thanks for your continued support. We really appreciate it. We have a store if you want to buy some gear. Discord, you get special access to our Discord if you're a patron, but it's free for everyone else for most of it. Follow us on the socials, please, and all that good stuff. Please subscribe to us on Facebook, X, IG, Rumble, YouTube, Rockfin, Spreaker, and the pod apps. On the show tonight, you've got me. I'm your host. My call sign's Hesher. I'm Brian McLean, broadcasting live out of Central Texas. We've got Simon from Florida joining us. We've got Ruckus joining us, and we have a couple open invites out there that may get accepted midstream here. So it's going to be a interesting show. Where are we at? So we just had the Trump election, right? Everybody's focused on his selections and nominations for potential cabinet members and all that stuff. We've got the fallout of the cultural warfare, people freaking out, people getting savior complex. We've got both sides of all that stuff going on. But there's, we've kind of been keeping an eye on this. The surge, right? The surge of resources and money and perhaps new tactics, techniques, procedures, and even assaults that are going to be supported, / paid for, / logistics done for, / targeting information done for Ukraine by the U.S. and other NATO members. How is Russia responding to this? And what is our government doing? What's going on Capitol Hill as all this is going on? Because clearly only a few people are talking about this, mostly out there on X and Substack and places like that. But there are unprecedented things happening right now that Simon from Florida is going to help us break down. Let me play this quick clip for you guys. Many of you Boiler Room viewers and listeners out there probably saw this in your doom scroll today. So it may be, it's just a clip from it, but this is Patrick Lancaster, who, if you don't know, does some great independent journalism out of Ukraine, along with Scott Ritter. Let's take a listen to a couple minutes of their conversation here just to set the stage.
The other thing is Joe Biden has hijacked American democracy. I mean, we should be on a path towards reconciliation with Russia, bringing an end to the conflict in Ukraine. Instead, we're on a path towards World War III. The United States has attacked Russia. That happened this morning. 6 ATACMS missiles that can only be fired if America provides the targeting data and facilitates the loading of that data into these missiles, were fired against Bryansk, Russia. The United States has attacked Russia. Joe Biden did this, his administration. And we now have France saying that that Ukraine can now use Scalp missiles. We have Great Britain saying Ukraine can use the Storm Shadow. So we're now in a scenario where three NATO type missiles in the possession of Ukraine that can only be fired if targeting data is loaded in by the NATO members themselves are going to be used against Russian soil. This is one of those scenarios where the Russians have said if a mass attack comes from Ukrainian and NATO missiles, Russia has to assume the worst and respond accordingly to, using its doctrine. Again, not my words. I'm simply repeating the words of the Russian president. Now, NATO's watching. If the Russian president does nothing, NATO will be emboldened. France, Macron will say, okay, we're going to send in advisors and we're going to send in troops. Poland will extend its air defense umbrella into Ukrainian soil. This is the direction we're heading. And this is because of Joe Biden. I mean, what can Donald Trump do? What Donald Trump can do is make it clear, because he will be president on January 20th if we are alive, if we somehow survive the next 2 months. He can make it clear that while he can't make policy today, he does make policy on January 20th. And therefore, he can put Europe on notice, Ukraine on notice, that while Biden may have turned the light green, America after January 20th insists that the light be red. And anybody who doesn't respect that reality will pay a price, including NATO, France, Great Britain, and Ukraine. This isn't making policy. This isn't interfering with policy. This isn't Logan Act stuff. It's simply stating the fact that on January 20th, anybody who acted on Joe Biden's green light will pay a heavy price, in terms of what the new administration will do. And if he does this, he might be able to have a chilling effect on those who want to escalate this conflict. And it sends a signal to Russia that Trump isn't going to continue the Biden administration. And maybe Russia will read from that whatever consequences accrue through the American attack on Ukraine, which took place this morning. Again, we need to emphasize what it is and what it isn't. This isn't a unilateral action by Ukraine. The United States of America attacked Russia this morning. The United States of America attacked Russia this morning. What is Russia going to do about it? And there's just a whole bunch of factors in there. But the big thing here is the insult to American democracy by Joe Biden. He's literally leading us down a path towards nuclear annihilation. And the American people didn't vote for this. They didn't say, yes, we want you to take a hard line with Ukraine. They said, no, we're voting for the man who wants to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. And Biden is totally disregarding the will of the American people. This is why I called for the surrounding of the White House, the surrounding of Congress, and the American people to send a signal to these lame duck administration that the killing us all is not acceptable.
All right, let's bring our guests on to the show here. We've got Simon from Florida joining us. Simon, welcome to the Boiler Room. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello there, guys. Thank you very much for having me back again. And I would point out that Scott Ritter, when making these comments today, had not read this document. He has not done the legwork that you and I are now going to do live on air. I was the first call on his show today. I offered it to him, and he said that if I sent it to him, maybe he'd get to it on Friday. So despite his abundant use of expletives and his sense of urgency that he tried to transmit to his audience, he wasn't actually willing to read the policy document.
Yeah, and that was what really struck me, because he came in with some pretty strong rhetoric. You got a sample of it right there. And when I read the document that we're going to cover here, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is potentially worse than he's even saying. Let's bring Ruckus in so we can get started. Ruckus, thanks for being here tonight. This is definitely going to be an interesting broadcast.
No, my friend. Let me thank you, and let me especially thank Simon for making my day such a gloriously happy, joy-filled one.
I'm not hearing Ruckus. Is he on mute?
Oh,
can you hear me?
Yeah, he's not hearing you. I'm hearing you, though.
Okay.
I see
that might be your issue, Simon. You might need to reconnect.
Yeah, you might need to bounce out and back in.
But would you like me to bounce out and back in? No problem. I'll do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No
Okay.
worries, but I woke up today quite early. Actually, I don't know. I've been doing that a lot lately. Hesher's been staying up real late. I think the time that he stays up until is when I'm like waking up or something. But anyways, there's been a lot going on. There's a lot in the news. We have this World War III stuff, and I was looking at it and I thought, wow, this is really bad. This is bad. This is bad, guys. This is pretty bad. And then Simon from Florida reached out to me, and then we got on a phone call, and then he laid out just exactly how bad it really is. And I did some more digging beyond that. And yes, that's what we're going to discuss here. So hopefully he's able to reconnect with us, because the real quick gist of it is that you may have heard, but only hearing from mainstream media sources, of course, that Russia has made some decisions about how they might respond using the good old nuclear weapons. You know, the big ultimate no-no, the thing we're all supposed to avoid at all costs. Remember that? But that's what we're going to discuss today. So I do want to thank again Hesher and Simon for bringing such wonderful news to me, and then inspiring this emergency broadcast to share the good news to all of you out there.
Yeah.
But all kidding aside, let's do this.
All right, Simon, are you able to hear Ruckus now?
I can hear you both loud and clear. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
excellent.
So if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
just to explain why it's necessary to go through this whole document. Okay, so this is a direct quote from the Russian foreign minister, who did a 1-hour question and answer session, mainly in relation to the G20, but also in relation to the Chinese and Brazilian proposals for peace negotiations regarding Ukraine. And in response to a question about the publication of this document that we're going to go through, which has only so far officially been published as a PDF of a Russian version, there's not an official English translation, but I've had this humanly translated by a subject matter expert today. Okay, but Lavrov said, quote, "Today we have officially published the fundamentals of the nuclear doctrine of the Russian Federation. Everything is confirmed there and already fixed by law. This is not a draft, it's not a proposal, it's not subject to a vote in the Russian parliament. This is it." Okay? President Putin announced this publicly on September the 12th. What he announced was not what the result was. What Putin announced was that this document was going to be redrafted from the previous version. Lavrov continues to say, "I hope that this doctrine will be read, but not the way they, meaning the Americans and the Golden Billion, read the UN Charter, seeing there only what they need, but in all its completeness and interconnectedness." And that is why it's critical to read the whole document, including the cover sheet, and not just take even RT, for example, who have put out a short story with 7 bullet points, because it misses a lot of the detail and the nuance, including things such as this is in immediate effect the moment it was signed today by President Putin after the first attack inside Russia using the American ATACMS missiles.
That cannot be understated, by the way. Just I'm sorry to step in, but that's huge. This is a big deal.
Yeah, it really is. The immediacy of it, the legitimacy of it, the source, all of this stuff is highly alarming. And when we start getting into the bullet points, Simon, just let me know if you want me to put it on screen. I can throw it up on the screen. I've got a copy paste of it on a document here.
Sure, if you like to, if it'll make it easier for people as I read through it now. There are some paragraphs that are key, and those will be great for us to discuss. And there are some that are kind of technical, and we can probably jump over those in order to get through the document quickly in the time remaining.
Okay, cool.
So,
real quick, guys, because you guys can do this however you want. In particular, Simon, because you're the one bringing this important information. This is your idea, and I appreciate you bringing it to everybody. The thing is, like, do you think it might be wise to point, like you just brought up the fact that RT is just sugarcoating everything with just 7 key points? Do you want to cover any?
No.
Like, what is it about the thing? Let's just get into the meat of it.
Yeah, we just have to get into it.
All right.
This is a 6.5-page version of what is probably a 500-page manual. So it's already been summarized to death. And so,
Okay, let's do it.
and so just from a pure kind of English literature point of view, there's a point at which further summarization renders it meaningless. And that's why the Russians are saying, you've got to read this version in its entirety, because they have shrunk it as much as it's like humanly possible to do. Okay, so just to get into the cover sheet, so it says, a decree of the President of the Russian Federation on the approval of the fundamentals of the state policy of the Russian Federation in the field of nuclear deterrence. In order to improve the state policy of the Russian Federation in the field of nuclear deterrence, I, being President Putin, hereby decree: 1, to approve the attached fundamentals of the state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence; 2, to recognize as invalid the decree of the President of the Russian Federation of June 2nd, 2020, policy document number 355. And that point is important because that is the previous Russian nuclear weapon use doctrine. That has been completely cancelled. Okay? So this isn't an amendment, this is a fresh start. Okay? And it says, point number 3 of the cover sheet, this decree shall enter into force on the date of its signing. And it's signed November 19th, 2024, document number 991, signed by Vladimir Putin. So that's it. It's in law. Okay? And whilst we may see the West ignoring laws and reinterpreting them as they see fit, whenever they see fit, in order to change the rules-based international order whenever somebody finds a loophole and they use it against them, Vladimir Putin is almost like OCD about having everything legalized. So he announced this was going to be changed. He's had policy teams of people, Lavrov has explained, working on this document for 2 months. Okay, it's been reviewed, it's signed, and it's come into force immediately today. Okay, so if you hear anybody saying, oh, it's going to come into force in 90 days, and so Trump's got like a 30-day window after he takes office, or it has to go to the Russian parliament and they're going to be closed for Christmas, we don't have to worry about this until 2026, it's all bullshit. Okay, so it's right now. This is immediate, which is why I'm so grateful that you've made the time available to do this today. So it goes on to say, November 19th, 2024, the actual decree itself, in the general provisions, these fundamentals are a document of strategic planning, in point number 1, in the field of ensuring defense and reflect official views on the essence of nuclear deterrence, define military dangers and threats for the neutralization of which nuclear deterrence is carried out to neutralize the dangers and threats. The principles of nuclear deterrence, as well as the conditions for the transition of the Russian Federation to the use of nuclear weapons, so that's from using conventional weapons to using nuclear weapons. They're describing what the threshold for that momentous decision is. This is very important. It's not just for policy wonks. This is life and death for millions of people. Okay? It goes on to say, in point 2, guarantee deterrence of a potential enemy from aggression against the Russian Federation, and this is then critical here, and or its allies. And just in the last few days, the Mutual Defense Pact between Russia and North Korea has been ratified by the North Koreans and by the Russian parliament. So that is in force before this document was signed now. So North Korea is one of those allies. Okay? And it says, it is amongst the highest state priorities. Deterrence of aggression is ensured by the entire military might of the Russian Federation, including nuclear weapons. In point 3, the state policy of the Russian Federation in the field of nuclear deterrence, hereafter referred to as state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence, is a set of coordinated, this is another important point here, this is the master plan. This is not just for generals, okay? It is a set of coordinated political, military, technical, diplomatic, economic, informational, and other measures implemented with the support of the forces and means of nuclear deterrence to prevent aggression. So it's what in the West now they're calling a whole of society response. Every aspect, all the levers of power, as the NATO strategic document says. Okay? And it's a means of nuclear deterrence to prevent aggression against the Russian Federation, and reiterated again in consecutive paragraphs, and or its allies united by a common plan, which immediately makes one ask, what is the common plan, and who exactly are all those allies that have agreed the common plan? Does that include Iran? Does it include China? We know it includes Belarus. What about the countries in the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or the Commonwealth of Independent States, or the Eurasian Economic Union? Just today, Lavrov was reiterating that the Greater Eurasian Partnership, which is Putin's long-term goal for the outcome of international relations transformation, is specifically to include the new security architecture for the Eurasian landmass, which is Vladivostok on the Pacific Ocean all the way to the Portuguese port of Lisbon on the Atlantic Sea. That's how big the scheme is. Now, I'm not saying for a moment that India signed up to this and Iraq signed up to this yet, but there they've spilt some of the beans by telling us that the Allies have a unified common plan. That's very, very important. Okay? The state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence is defensive in nature, aimed at maintaining the potential of nuclear forces at a level sufficient to ensure nuclear deterrence, and guarantees the protection of the sovereignty of the territorial integrity of the state, deterrence of a potential enemy from aggression against the Russian Federation, and for the third time, and or its allies, and in the event of a military conflict, preventing the escalation of military actions and their termination on terms acceptable to the Russian Federation, and for the fourth time, and or its allies. This is not just about Russia. It's a fundamental misunderstanding by Ritter and Boyle and Alex Jones, who was talking about this today once again, having read headlines and not having read the document, even though I offered it to them. The producer that I deal with was not working today, and the other one just chose whatever, we're going to go on some 10-word headlines as opposed to the actual document. That can lead to disaster. Okay?
Simon.
Yes.
If I may, if you'd like, I can read each of these. I can take over and read a couple of these paragraphs and let you respond to the paragraph to save your voice.
No, I'm fine to do this. I'm going to have to do it again later on tonight and tomorrow as well. Cool. But thank you ever so much for the offer, though. I appreciate that. So once again, we're on second page, and we're on point 5. It says the Russian Federation considers nuclear weapons as a means of deterrence, the use of which is an extreme and forced measure, and takes all necessary efforts to reduce the nuclear threat and prevent the aggravation of interstate relations that could provoke military conflicts, including nuclear ones. So they're making it crystal clear there that they are not approaching this in a later that's called haphazard manner. This is intended to be a last resort. Okay. Number 6, the normative and legal framework of these fundamentals consists of the Constitution of the Russian Federation, generally recognized principles and norms of international law, international treaties of the Russian Federation, federal constitutional laws, federal laws, and other normative legal acts and documents governing defense and security issues. The Constitution and the Federation generally recognize the principles of international law, international treaties, federal constitutional laws, and other documents relating to defense and security issues. The provisions of these fundamentals are mandatory for all federal government bodies, other government bodies, and organizations participating to ensure nuclear deterrence. These fundamentals may be clarified depending on external and internal factors affecting defense. So that's the variation clause there. That's critically important, okay? Because they're saying that this could change. So if there's some loophole that some policy analyst in the Pentagon is relying upon, then we can be pretty sure it's going to be amended or changed, okay? So point number 9, the Russian Federation exercises nuclear deterrence against a potential enemy, which is understood, and this is very important, this is how they're defining their enemies against which nuclear power may be exercised, is understood as individual states and military coalitions, including blocs and alliances, that consider the Russian Federation as a potential enemy. So that absolutely within that qualifies NATO, who have said that Russia is an immediate threat and China is a long-term threat. So without saying the 4 letters NATO, they're telling you that this is directed against NATO right there in that paragraph 9. Okay? And they're saying that the alliances that they're considering enemies could either possess nuclear and or other types of weapons of mass destruction, or significant combat potential of general purpose forces. So they're including conventional armed forces, not only nuclear powers. Nuclear deterrence is also exercised against states that provide the territory, air, and or sea space and other resources for the preparation, this is very important here because this is including Poland here, the preparation and implementation of aggression against the Russian Federation. So the training centers in Britain and in Germany and in Poland and the vehicle repair and maintenance centers in Romania, all of those are included by that. Okay, so it's saying NATO deterrence is also exercised against states that provide their territory, air, and or sea space and resources. So resources includes money. So that's anybody giving money. So over 50 countries who have given money to Ukraine, right? For the preparation and implementation of aggression against the Russian Federation. That's an extremely wide set of adversaries there. It's not just the United States. Aggression by any state from the military coalition defined as a bloc or alliance against the Russian Federation, and for the 5th time, and or its allies, is considered effective today as aggression of this coalition as a whole. So what they're saying there is the Lithuanians or the Latvians or the Poles start sending uniformed armed forces into Ukraine and they go into the Kursk Oblast, or they're firing directly against Russian sites. It's not just those countries that Russia regards as aggressors. It's every single country that is in a formal military alliance with them. So that there is a warning, because the Poles and the Lithuanians are being exceptionally aggressive, along with the Brits. You do this, and we're not just taking out London, it's game over Europe-wide. Okay, that's a really key point there. Under 11, aggression against the Russian Federation for the 6th time and or its allies by any non-nuclear state with the participation or support of a nuclear state is considered as their joint attack. So whether that's correct in international law or not, what they're saying there is Ukraine attacked us with the support, as you explained, gentlemen, with the targeting and the reconnaissance and the satellite and the experts doing the programming and the people loading the aircraft and maintaining the vehicles and stuff. They're saying that support of America, which is a nuclear state, is considered as a joint attack. Joint attack. It's not just Ukrainian. Nuclear deterrence is aimed at ensuring that a potential adversary understands the inevitability of retaliation in the event of aggression against the Russian Federation. And for the 7th time, sorry to be laboring this point, but it's the word allies. If you do a word search, it's very prominent in this document. For the 7th time, and or Russia's allies. So if they sign next week or the following week this formal alliance with Iran, that's right in the mix, irrespective of what Israel does. 13. Nuclear deterrence is ensured by the presence of the armed forces of the Russian Federation of combat-ready forces and means capable of using nuclear weapons to inflict unacceptable damage on a potential adversary under any conditions, as well as the readiness and determination of the Russian Federation to use such weapons. So there, we've got 2 terms there, right? Readiness and determination. That question there came up in several British leadership campaigns. And they were asked the question, you'll probably recall, they asked Liz Truss this, and they said, if the situation arose, would you be willing to push the nuclear button? And she said the only way deterrence works is if the other side believes that you have the will, as Leni Riefenstahl would say, the power of the will, or the triumph of the will, to push the button. Okay? And that's why they're saying not only combat readiness, but determination of the Russian Federation to use such weapons. Nuclear deterrence shall be carried out continuously in peacetime during periods of the immediate threat of aggression and in wartime, up until the use of nuclear weapons. The main military dangers that, depending upon changes in the military, political, and strategic situation, may develop into military threats to the Russian Federation, otherwise known as threats of aggression, and the neutralization of those threats, for which nuclear deterrence is carried out. And note that they say deterrence, not an attack. And then this is key here, absolutely critical, the points we're going to go through here. Okay, this is paragraph 15 of this document. Are the following categories of the threats of aggression that may the use of nuclear weapons. They're not saying that they categorically will, but these are the areas that are under consideration. So 15A, the potential adversary's possession of nuclear and or other types of weapons of mass destruction that may be used against the Russian Federation and for the 8th time or its allies, as well as the means of delivering these types of weapons. Part B, the potential adversary's possession and deployment of missile defense systems and means, medium and short-range cruise and ballistic missiles, high-precision non-nuclear and hypersonic weapons, unmanned strike vehicles of various spacings. Note there, various spacings. So not just in Ukraine, but other locations as well. And directed energy weapons that may be used against the Russian Federation. That's pretty darn interesting there. What do you think of that one, Ruckus?
I think I had to bold and underline that one, Simon, because
Yeah, I
I'm
did
like, what
too.
did they just say? What the
Yeah.
heck?
Yeah, and remember when I was on
Wow,
last
this is
time
very
with you
telling.
guys, I mentioned how the document said about enhancing their technical cooperation on nuclear weapons development with the People's Republic of China. Sometimes these things sneak into these documents, particularly when they've been rushed out. With hindsight, they probably would have edited that out. But who has directed energy weapons? Are they in space? Are they on planes? Are they on ships? That opens up a lot of questions, just that one phrase alone, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
truly.
So
I'll
on
ask
all of these
Elon
other
Musk's Grok
on all of
and
these
see what it
other
says.
alternative media sites, anyone, Jones, Last American Vagabond, Redacted, Glenn Greenwald, on any of those, right? They've had access to this document for the same length of time that we have. Have you heard any of them mentioning about directed energy weapons that may be used against the Russian Federation?
No.
Okay, so I don't mean to belabor this point, but this is why we're going through it in its entirety. And that's what the Russians told us to do.
Yeah.
They
Not at all. Not at all. That's worth bolding, underlining, and pausing on. That's a big one right there, especially considering some of the things we've seen here in our own country, talking to you, former residents of Lahaina and maybe some other places.
You know, the Twin Towers, anybody? Anyway.
Okay, so, I mean, you know, thank you for the airtime, but this is why we're doing this. Okay, so 15C, the build-up by a potential adversary in territories adjacent to the Russian Federation, and for, I think, I've lost count, this is the 8th or 9th time, and its allies. Okay, so if North Korea is an ally, who's next to North Korea? South Korea.
South Korea?
Okay, so we've got South Korea in the mix right there, bang. Okay, so if there's a build-up of a potential adversary, so maybe the Americans flying in B-52s or parking their nuclear submarine in the port as they did, okay, that qualifies under this category C here. Okay, so what they're doing is they're extending, and just in case this isn't crystal clear, I'm really reiterating this point, that by this document today, Russia has just extended a nuclear umbrella over North Korea, as the United States specifically did in writing for South Korea. That's what just happened in that paragraph. Okay, it's very important to understand that. Adjacent maritime areas of general purpose forces, so this is even conventional, that include nuclear weapon delivery vehicles and or military infrastructure that supports their use. Part D, the creation and deployment by a potential adversary in space of missile defense and anti-satellite warfare systems. Remember, we had that big freak out in the United States when Mike Turner went public and said the Russians have put anti-satellite systems in space. That's a direct response to that.
Yeah.
Okay? As well as strike weapons, deployment of nuclear weapons and their delivery vehicles in the territories of non-nuclear states. So that's Germany, Poland, Italy, Turkey, all of those NATO states that there are American-controlled nuclear weapons based in those countries, though they themselves declare themselves not to be nuclear-armed states. Tough shit. You've been included in Part D of the new Russian nuclear weapons policy. Okay, so you're going to get nuked. We don't care whether you control them or not. E.
Does that include Elon Musk's SpaceX satellites and shit?
The Chinese are definitely getting ready to shoot those down. That's all Starlink, and it's not Starlink. Also, don't forget you've got what do they call it? ShieldLink. ShieldLink is the DoD, the Department of Defense version of Starlink. So like a lot of the things he puts up are not for civilian use; they're specifically for U.S. military use. Okay, there's two systems. There's ShieldLink and Starlink. The creation in Part E of new, or this is critical here for Ukraine and Moldova and Armenia and Georgia, the creation of new or the expansion of existing military coalitions, like perhaps NATO, blocs or alliances like AUKUS or the Quad, leading to the approach of their military infrastructure to the borders of the Russian Federation. That would categorically include the NATO liaison office in Japan. Okay? Part G. Actions by a potential adversary aimed at isolating part of the territory of the Russian Federation, including blocking access to communications and vital transport. And what are they talking about there? Can you guys guess? You know, home of the Teutonic Knights?
Yeah, please expand for us.
Kaliningrad,
Okay.
that is surrounded by Poland and Lithuania. And so there you have the Suwalki Gap, which is where the Russian railroad goes from Belarus to Kaliningrad, and the Lithuanians are constantly threatening to shut that down, so they can't even get food into Kaliningrad.
Okay.
That point is specifically talking about Kaliningrad being shut off. Okay. 3, actions by a potential adversary aimed at the destruction, and by destruction they mean annihilation, of ecologically hazardous facilities of the Russian Federation that may lead to man-made ecological or social disasters. So what they're talking about there is taking out Russian nuclear power plants.
Mhm.
Okay, the destruction of ecologically hazardous facilities. So that apparently was the goal of the Ukrainian invasion of the Kursk Oblast, was to get to the Kursk nuclear power plant and cook it off. And so they're addressed that these points, they're not theoretical. Okay, this isn't some 1970s book on can we fight and win a nuclear war. This is direct response to what's happened for the last couple of years. So 3I, planning and conducting by a potential adversary of large-scale military exercises near the borders of the Russian Federation. What have we just seen there? Thunderstrike 2024 and Steadfast Defender 2024. Flying B-52s right up to the Russian border and turning around at the last second. That is what that is response to. Okay? Part K.
We do that all the time.
Yes.
That's not good.
But now
Wow.
they're saying you do that and we don't know if you're going to turn around, we're going to nuke you. So NATO needs to understand this. This is drawing real hard red lines. Okay? They're saying uncontrolled proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, their delivery vehicles, technologies, and equipment for their manufacture. Okay? So you could say F-16s are the delivery vehicles for B-61 free-fall NATO nuclear weapons.
Mhm.
So we just gave those to Ukraine. That falls into category K. Okay, 16. The principles of nuclear deterrence are, this is where we look at their principles. This isn't like messing around. You see how I said this document is summarized?
Yeah.
And you take out half the paragraphs to make it 3 pages, you lose all the detail. It's super summarized already. A, continuity of measures to ensure nuclear deterrence. B, adaptability of nuclear deterrence to military dangers and threats. C, uncertainty for a potential adversary of the scale, time, and place of possible use of nuclear deterrence forces and means. D, centralization of state management of the activities of federal executive bodies and organizations participating in ensuring nuclear deterrence. D, they made a mistake there, you can tell, right? Because it went D, D, E, G.
Yeah, they did double A at the top. I noticed it made a mess.
No, this is what I mean. This document was done in a rush, right? It was done in a rush.
Yeah.
They probably weren't planning on putting this document out until January. And when the Ukrainians attacked, Putin said, I want this document in 12 hours. Okay? And so they've made mistakes as simple as not even checking, does it go A, B, C, D, E, F, G? D, D, E, G, this F is missing.
Yeah.
Okay? It's little things like that that give you an indication of whether or not this was carefully planned since September, or somebody was told, you get this done overnight or you're falling out of a window. Okay? But it also makes it important when you're referring to it, if you just were to say 16D, which D is it?
Yeah.
Okay? So D, the rationality of the structure and composition of nuclear deterrence, forces and means, as well as their maintenance at a level sufficient to accomplish the necessary task. Now, fortunately, neither of those Ds are particularly important, I would suggest. E, which should be F, and this is important, maintenance of constant readiness of the allocated part of the nuclear deterrence forces and means for combat use. G, centralization of control over the use of nuclear weapons, including those deployed outside the territory of the Russian Federation. So that's freaking key there.
That's disturbing.
So where are the Russian? No, we know already that they've put tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus. That's publicly admitted. We have the GPS locations. We know that's already happened, right? But imagine if they were planning on rolling them into Iran or North Korea. Okay? The Russian nuclear forces being stationed in those countries, like American nuclear forces are in Britain and Italy and Turkey and Germany and probably Romania and Poland. Okay? So we're talking a massive step forward in nuclear proliferation there, at least in terms of their stationing, if not control. Okay? So that's another really important point there to underline there. So that's 16G, including those deployed outside of the Russian Federation. Now, that might just be on Russian nuclear submarines. Is that on the territory, floating in the sea? You can argue that point backwards and forwards. Doesn't really make any difference if they nuke you, right?
Yeah.
17. The Russian nuclear forces of the Russian Federation include land, sea, and air-based nuclear forces. Notice they didn't slip up there and add in space. Okay, that would have been a treaty violation. The next section now is for conditions for the transition of the Russian Federation. This is not removing their genitals. This is for the use of nuclear weapons. So this is the threshold. Okay. Paragraph 18. The Russian Federation reserves the right to use nuclear weapons and or other types of weapons of mass destruction. It's reserving the right to use sorry, I may not have said that clearly. Let me repeat that, please. The Russian Federation reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in response to the use of nuclear and or other types of weapons of mass destruction against it, and for the 10th time, or its allies, as well as in the event of aggression against the Russian Federation and or the Republic of Belarus as participants in the Union state with the use of conventional weapons, just conventional weapons, creating a critical threat to their sovereignty and or territorial integrity. Okay, so on the first reading, it might appear that the curse qualifies, but then you look back at it again and say, is it a critical threat? It's being managed, so it's probably subcritical at the moment, right?
And Simon, and I can't help but notice that this is the first time they actually named one of their allies. They
no,
directly
but
named Belarus.
But no, that's a slight misreading there. They're not saying that Belarus is an ally. They're saying that Belarus is part of the Union state.
Gotcha, I misspoke.
No,
but still, that they're naming the country.
Perfectly valid question. But so the point here is, if allies isn't just Belarus, then who else are they talking about? Because
Okay.
it'd be easy to say,
Good
oh, they mean
good
Belarus.
question.
But there they've specifically said, no, Belarus is in a separate category. So it's countries other than Belarus are the allies.
Maybe Simon, what do they mean when they say union state for anyone that hasn't heard that term?
So essentially, Russia and Belarus have merged almost completely.
Okay.
They've merged in like 27 categories, and they're arguing about like defense, foreign relations, and taxation.
Gotcha.
But everything else is completely harmonized between the two countries. And that's called the Union State. It's like the European Union. It's 27 countries that have harmonized like animal rights laws and certain elements of criminal law and environmental law and stuff like that. That's all harmonized throughout the European Union. So there's a lot of categories that have been harmonized between Belarus and Russia.
Okay, thanks. That helps.
Okay. 19 says the conditions determining the possibility of the Russian Federation are, this is really, really important, right? And once again, it's a slight misformatting here. For A, and this is what most of the mainstream media have been focused on, this 19A. But as you'll see, there's a lot more points than just this, okay? So they say receipt of reliable information regarding ballistic missiles attacking the Russian Federation for the 11th time and or its allies. Use by the enemy of nuclear and or other types of weapons of mass destruction on the territories of the Russian Federation for the 12th time and or its allies, and on military formations or objects of the Russian Federation located outside of its territory. Then C, the enemy's impact on critically important state or military facilities of the Russian Federation, the disabling of which will lead to the disruption of the response of the nuclear forces. So that's basically like a first strike to try and take out the Russian nukes. D, aggression against the Russian Federation and or the Republic of Belarus as participants in the Union State with the use of conventional weapons, creating a critical threat to their sovereignty and or territorial integrity. So that's a repeat of the previous paragraph. The receipt of reliable information about the massive launch. So that's a key word there that isn't defined, at least in the publicly available information. What is the definition of massive? Is it 10, 20, 50, 100? We've already seen the Iranians launch 310 missiles against Israel. Was that massive? That's critical. So when the Brits and the French and the Americans going, Putin's not going to do anything, and maybe he's drunk and they don't even know where the nuclear pardon is and stuff, and like go ahead and we can like push the envelope. They don't know what the threshold is because we don't know it either. It says massive, but there's no number. Okay, and even if there was a number, is it 100 big missiles or 200 small missiles? Okay.
Yeah, and what's reliable information too? That's kind of a term that's a little ambiguous.
That gives you lawyers wiggle room, but massive could be numerically defined. Okay, so they're saying the takeoff of air, and listen to this, air and space attack weapons. Space attack weapons. And then all like, if in 23rd century those become available, they're like, if you use your space attack weapons, what freaking space attack weapons?
Yeah.
That's like the directed energy weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Another big underlying.
Yeah, they just brought up DEWs and now they're bringing space attack. Okay.
Weapons. Strategic and tactical aircraft, cruise missiles, unmanned, so that's drones, hypersonic and other aircraft, and their crossing of the state border of the Russian Federation. Okay, so it's a pretty wide category there, okay, with some very nebulous terms like reliable, massive, and space attack. Okay, so that's one that's worth revisiting.
Yeah.
Number 20, the decision to use nuclear weapons is made by the president of the Russian Federation. Now, this is a key point here, key point in paragraph 21. And this is giving the president permission to tell a foreign government about a demonstration attack. So if they decide, look, this is your last freaking warning, we're going to fire an RS-28 intercontinental ballistic missile, and we're going to target 4 uninhabited islands. And we'll tell you when, and we'll tell you where, and we'll do it during daylight, and you can bring your top shit spec stuff and see if you can hit it. Okay? This is the permission for him to do a demonstration attack, telling them in advance. Listen to this. This is really freaking important. And this is what Ritter was denying would be done. He said, we're beyond this. They're just going to nuke Berlin or Paris or London. Okay? But they specifically put this remaining escalation step in. So it's very important to pay attention to this. And I'm not trying to teach you psychetics, but there's some of this paragraphs that are more important than others. And this one's freaking key, right? So it says the president of the Russian Federation may, if necessary, inform the military political leadership of other states and or international organizations about the readiness of the Russian Federation to use nuclear weapons, or about the decision taken to use those nuclear weapons, as well as the fact of their use. Okay, so you can see how that's basically saying you won't be a traitor if you tell the US Defense Department in advance that you're going to do this. So that's the setup for a demonstration attack.
Wow.
Okay, so a section 4, we're getting right to the end now, the last few paragraphs, just in case anyone's kind of like timing out. The tasks and functions of federal bodies of state power and other bodies and organizations in the implementation of state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence. The president of the Russian Federation exercises general leadership of state policy in the field of nuclear deterrence. The government in 23 of the Russian Federation implements measures to implement economic policy aimed at maintaining and developing nuclear deterrence, and also formulates, implements foreign and information policy in the field of nuclear deterrence. And we had some think tank, I can't remember who it was now today, put out a report saying, oh, if it wasn't for Trump being elected, we could have bankrupted Russia and their economy would have collapsed. We only had to go for 12 more months. Total fucking bullshit. Right? The Global Times
Brookings,
just announced that the pipeline, the next big major 38 billion cubic feet per year of natural gas transmission from Russia to China, that went operational yesterday. Okay?
Wow.
And you think that we're going to make them go bankrupt in a year? Fully operational.
Sanctions haven't worked
not
yet.
At some crazy point in like 2045 yesterday. Okay? So that one pipeline has the capacity of all 4 Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. So China is going to buy all of the gas from Russia that they would have sold to the whole of Europe. Total and utter market replacement.
Wow.
And these idiots, scumbags in these think tanks who are putting out reports with predetermined conclusions are claiming that we can bankrupt Russia when they've just replaced the market for every single drop of natural gas at maximum capacity that they were going to sell to Europe. I would suggest that's pretty significant.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay? And the money from that, they're explaining, is the implementation of economic policy aimed at maintaining and developing nuclear deterrence. Ta-da. It's the harmonious circle of we sell gas, you give us money, we buy nukes. 24, almost finished. The Security Council, and once again here, they goofed up. There's two 24s. 24, it's incredible, frankly, that he even signed this. You'd have thought he'd have skim read through it and noticed, hey, what the fuck, guys, there's two paragraphs, 24s.
Yeah.
All right, this goes to show how rushed this was, right? The Security Council of the Russian Federation formulates the main directions of military policy in the field of nuclear deterrence and coordinates the activities of federal executive bodies and organizations participating in the implementation of decisions adopted by the President of the Russian Federation concerning ensuring nuclear deterrence. Try saying that very fast when you've had 3 bottles of wine. The Security Council of the Russian Federation shall formulate the main directions of military policy in the area of nuclear deterrence and shall coordinate the activities, blah, blah, blah. Very similar to the previous one. Okay. The unofficial 25. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, through the General Staff of the Armed Forces, shall directly plan and implement organization and military measures in the area of nuclear deterrence. And lastly, other federal executive bodies. This is basically just the org chart. It's saying who's responsible for what. Other federal executive bodies and organizations shall participate in the implementation of decisions taken by the President of the Russian Federation concerning ensuring nuclear deterrence in accordance with their powers. And that's it. Okay? So for anybody who tells you it's too long, we can't read it, nobody's interested in knowing why their family got nuked to death, it doesn't actually take that long to go through it.
Yeah, we just did it in less than an hour with my ramblings at the beginning, and you're going through it with breaks for a little bit of analysis. Less than an hour of your time to read it. I read it twice before we came on air, so that is my 3rd read. And Simon, it helps to have someone like you read it to me, so I've got it ingrained in my brain.
Encapsulated in your brain.
Yeah, thanks. I can't speak anymore, but that's all up there.
I'm just absolutely shocked, Simon, that this amount of important information, there's so many people in our industry who can't be bothered to even discuss it or even take a look at it, consider it. Well, maybe Friday in the case of Scott Ritter, whatever, maybe he's got a lot on his plate. I'm not judging Scott Ritter, but where's the mainstream media on this? Actually, I did send you a clip. Where's our government on this, right?
Yeah,
what are they worried about?
Kamala is on the beach planning her next moves with the Obamas in Hawaii. And Biden has got lost in the Brazilian rainforest.
Yes, he has.
Right? So literally, it's like, the butt-sore Secretary of Defense, and I say that not in some kind of homophobic regard, but since he's recovering from prostate cancer, is sitting there pulling the levers of power in the Pentagon. But they haven't put out a statement in response to this either. Okay, so Smirkula, old Matthew Miller, who loves laughing about genocide and stuff, he's not saying we don't care about this and we're going to go out and pick up some cheap greasy hookers tonight or something. He's not even commenting at all, right? I mean, they're not even joking about this. It's like no comment, which is a legitimate concern, because one would hope that some of these people would be reading this stuff if they're getting paid $200,000 a year to do it, and it only takes 1 hour of their time.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But I can't reiterate enough that when Jones and apparently Ritter are literally telling us that we're going to die this week, which is not an exaggeration for Ritter. I mean, he really lost his cool. He was effing and blinding, and America's declared war on Russia, and they're going to nuke us any second, and it's all over, and kiss your ass goodbye, and start working on your bucket list, right? I mean, seriously, is what he was saying. Okay, but as I've explained, some categories have been greatly expanded, but there are still escalation steps reserved within it in regards to things like massive. And is it a critical threat or not a critical threat? So that there are still means for the Russians to back down. It's not a hair trigger that is automatically going to occur. But this is why Lavrov said, this isn't a draft. we told you we were doing this on the 12th of September. So it's been 2 months in coming that apparently we couldn't number our paragraphs correctly, right? All the subsections. And so don't be surprised, but don't just read like the cover sheet. It's only 8 pages long, including the cover sheet. And you need to read the whole thing. He literally said that in a press conference in Brazil to like 100 journalists. Okay. And then they published the transcript of that, which I've read in its entirety in Russian and an official translation in English. There's no excuse for not knowing this. Okay. And then the link in the transcript takes you to this page that was the tiny footnote on the bottom left-hand corner of the decree announcement on the Kremlin website. That's how I got this document before most other people.
And just so the listener and the audience and the viewers understand what Simon is talking about, I cleaned up the formatting mess by guessing what they were trying to say by labeling this one as A or this one as B. That might have been my fault, but yes, the document it's got like it'll be like A, B, B, E. It was weird. So like I just tried to clean that up just for the sake of as we were going through it.
You made it much more readable, but I wasn't even using your document. I understand.
I just wanted, yes, why I wanted the audience members to understand why it looks different than what we were discussing. But yes, if you look at the document, it's kind of all over the place. It's kind of out there. And then the other thing is, Simon, do you think is it any stretch of the imagination, or perhaps I'm just being a bit of a conspiracy theorist spreading misinformation something?
Shocked that there's gambling.
I'm sure. I know. But do you think do you think the reason why nobody wants to talk about this is because the ultimate end result is that if and when Russia decides to do something nuclear speaking, at least they want the world to think that it wasn't us. We did nothing. We were just sitting on the sidelines minding our own damn business, and Russia just decided to be aggressive. Russia's the crazy aggressor. Am I correct in making this assumption?
Yes. To quote British military intelligence, it was entirely unprovoked.
Yeah, and it's entirely preventable, and we can see it coming a mile away. So now what? Now that the ball is in everybody's courts, where do we go from here?
Well, so I think there's 2 things we could do. What would be the locations of the demonstration attack? That's a fun lotto to have. Not that you may necessarily get to spend your ill-gotten gains. And then your question is excellent and timely, is how ideally would we see NATO and or the Pentagon respond to this document in detail, not in some 10-second soundbite?
Yeah. And Simon, one thing I'm noticing as we're going through that, and you've pointed this out at multiple points during the reading, but so many of those check boxes are already checked and based on things that have already happened, and some things arguably that have happened in the last 24 hours tick a few boxes in there as well. So it's kind of like and I heard Scott saying that and it was mentioned a couple places that 6 of these longer range missiles have already been fired. So,
but 5 of them supposedly were shot down, but 1 did hit its target. Its target was a massive ammo dump, and the whole thing cooked off.
Wow.
So does that qualify as a massive attack?
Well, there you go. How do you define massive?
Yeah.
I saw the video that looked pretty massive to me, guys.
It did. The whole place blew up, and there was like 12 secondary explosions.
Yeah, it wasn't fireworks.
That wasn't
display.
An army truck full of like 81mm mortar rounds. That was a big ammo dump, like stock full of stuff.
So what do you think about Scott's saying the way that he categorized it? He's saying that the United States has attacked Russia. That's a direct quote, and that's what they titled their video. But we covered what Putin said on September 12th on this show, and it's Scott, and we just read the document. We know how they're framing it over there. Is that an accurate statement? I mean, what do you think?
So I would suggest that America attacked Russia months ago, if not a year ago, right? So the issue then is, 1, Ritter's very late to the game, and two, accepting that to be the case, has it crossed the threshold? And I would argue, and I think you gentlemen would be inclined to agree, though I won't, take words out of your mouth, having read each paragraph in full, it would appear that we're not over the line yet. Simply because we're quibbling about the definition of massive, for example.
Yeah.
Okay? But it's very clear that they've specifically said that in relation to Russia and Belarus, this is not a like-for-like nuclear exchange. It also includes the use of conventional weapons if it creates a critical threat. So that's the other word there, critical threat to the sovereignty and or territorial integrity of Belarus or Russia. So blowing up that ammo dump, did that cause Russia to collapse or break into pieces? No, it didn't.
What
Okay?
what about like a massive cyber attack that shuts down the
Hillary-
baking industry?
Hillary Clinton in 2016 said that a massive cyber attack the United States should regard as the equivalent of a nuclear attack, didn't she?
Yeah.
So how would
But-
Russia feel about that? Right?
Well, they don't actually use the word cyber. They do talk about critical infrastructure,
And
and
economy.
obviously you could cook off a nuclear power plant not just by bombing it, but by also causing its shutdown systems to malfunction and for it to overheat and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And something else Scott pointed out that I thought was noteworthy, considering what we just read, is that France is now saying that Ukraine can use their Scalp missiles, and the UK is saying that the Ukraine may use their Storm Shadow missiles. So
Yeah.
we've got two more, allied members of that bloc, right?
But today, Zelensky said that he's also working with other nations in addition to those who gave him permission, like yesterday or Friday, whenever he got the word from the Biden administration. So that could include Germany with the Taurus, okay, which is a heavier payload and longer range than the British or French systems. Ritter mentioned about the Americans allowing them to use the Joint Standoff Attack missiles. They've already given them permission for that. I'm like, how the hell did you not know that? Maybe he just misspoke in his frenzy of, enthusiasm. But, lots of these lines have already been joined together. I'm not saying that they've been red lines that are crossed, but in terms of giving permission, now we could see, Storm Shadow, for example, has an export version and a British military version. They've been talking about giving the British military version to Ukraine, which has an extended range.
Yeah, and probably a logistics and intel and reconnaissance chain that can't be used without the support of the British military.
Yes, almost certainly. Yeah, because nobody else has ever had that version before, because it's never been given to anybody before.
Right. So think about like the tanks that we and Germany gave them. They removed a lot of the active defense mechanisms, things that are of
the top spec sites
Yes.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Stuff you need probably a top secret clearance to manage, function, and all that stuff.
But in terms of the expansion of alliances, which was one of the categories, right? Obviously, that includes the expansion of NATO, which has been going on for decades, right? But it also includes now the expansion of NATO into Asia, which the new Japanese Prime Minister is specifically advocating for.
Mm-hmm. And
Japan borders Russia. They've got an island that's cut in half, right? So that obviously includes Japan in that case. It's not just Ukraine. This is global.
So in a scenario,
it sounds like a world war, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yes, this is to set up North Korea, Iran, Belarus, Russia, and potentially China.
Yeah. So
the Chinese keep on saying we're not in an alliance, but they then say, but we're beyond a traditional alliance.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably ticks the alliance box in that case, right?
Yeah, we're like outside of, we're changing the definitions of words here. We're leaving some things a little bit amorphous, so what about like a situation? One of the things that we see over and over again in these sort of, undeclared war conflicts where the United States and NATO likes to get involved is they like to come in and bring their F-16s in and create what they call a no-fly zone. So, maybe that's some of the thing that I see a lot of these creatures in Washington talking about. We need to get in there and make a demilitarized zone, a no-fly zone. It's not going to work like that in this case, Simon, because this is now Russian law. And for Putin to allow, a demilitarized zone and a no-fly zone to be set up, that's basically a declaration of war, because you're breaking almost all of those, stipulations that you just read.
Yeah, and note that it's the takeoff of the aircraft, just taking off.
Right.
Specifically says the takeoff of the aircraft, and it says tactical and strategic. So that's B-52s, B-2s, B-21s, F-16s, F-35s. They're covering the full gamut.
And the drones.
And they specifically say unmanned aerial vehicles, which would be drones.
Yeah, and satellites and whatever space weapons are.
And space weapons and direct energy weapons.
Right.
Guys, we're all going to get vaporized because somebody who's got his finger over some unknown space weapon, like he sneezes and he accidentally pushes the button and it's all over.
Yeah, well, what we should be doing is investing in blue paint.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of
Get on the
course.
roof.
I already got
blue.
cans of it.
We did that after Lahaina, man. We saw Oprah doing it, and we were like, roofs are going blue.
My neighbors think I'm a bit weird, but I'm now wearing a blue top hat just in case.
Nice.
I love it.
All right. Well, let's take a look, you guys. We can wrap up pretty soon here, but let's take a look at.
Do we have any questions from any audience members?
Oh yeah. Okay. Let's. So shout out to the audience out there. If you're in the Boiler Room Discord or the YouTube chat, or Rumble or Rockfin, I'll try to bring all those chats up right now.
I think in general, they're just in a general state of shock and disbelief.
Yeah, there's people talking about bunkers and
like,
cocktails.
And a lot of, they're like, damn, oh my, oh
but
no.
If you're out there viewing or listening and you want to ask us a question, throw it in the Boiler Room live chat or the Rumble chat or the YouTube chat or the Rockfin chat. I'll try to check the X chat. I'm still not very expert at that. But while you're thinking of your questions, let's take a quick look at what Speaker Johnson is concerned with today while all this is going on. And
literally at the same time.
This is just amazing. It's absolutely amazing that this is the case here. Yeah, let's take a look here. Oh boy. I'm sure it's of utmost importance and related to stopping World War III. Let's see.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make a statement for all of you here and be very clear. I was asked a question this morning at the leadership gaggle, and I rejected the premise because the answer is so obvious. For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said. But I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity. And so we can do and believe all those things at the same time. And I wanted to make that clear for everybody because there's lots of questions. But that's where I stand. I've stood there my whole life, and those are facts. Hello, everybody.
Okay, thanks for that, Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker Johnson.
Wow.
But that's in relation to whether or not America's first transgender member of the House of Representatives, who's gone, in theory, from a man to a woman, should be allowed over other women's objections to use the ladies' toilet in that chamber of the House of Representatives.
Oh my gosh. It's like
that was what
pressing matters.
He gave a press conference about, whilst, according to Ritter, we're all about to be turned into atomic dust.
So we're all about to be nuked, and we've come full circle in DC to Toilet Gate. This is amazing. I feel like I'm in 2015. Okay, so
he
Simon
followed it up by reading a tweet
at this point
from Johnny Depp, who told us what he had for lunch the other day.
If you wouldn't mind, guys, just in case anybody has joined us late and they've missed my recitation of this 27 paragraph document plus the cover sheet, I will be going over these issues with my regular co-host on Weaponized News, and in order to accommodate you and break the news with you, we moved our show from 7 p.m. New York time to 9 p.m. New York time. So in half an hour, I'll be going over this again, and there'll be an additional opinion there and chance for more questions. So if people have joined us late, I'm not detracting in any way whatsoever from all the hard work that you guys have done reading this document and making your time available. But I am going to do my regular show in 30 minutes as well. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Here's a question from the YouTube chat. Kimberly wants to know, what threat do we see on the U.S.? How will it play out for us here in the United States, you think? What are we looking at?
Yeah, duck and cover.
We laugh, but it's not funny. Okay.
I was telling Simon earlier today, I was like, I pulled out my potassium iodide tablets just in case, and he told me you're supposed to start taking those 2 weeks ahead of time. I'm like, shit.
Take the whole pack. All right. Simon, Kilowatt asks, where's China on this? In any expansion on where you think China's at in relation to all this?
Well, China, I would suggest, is part of the United Common Plan. We just read that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and when it says Russia and or its allies like 12 times, so every other paragraph states that this isn't just about Russia, right?
Yeah.
I would suggest that China, whether it's official or not, is one of those allies.
What did George Bush Sr. teach us, right? If you're not with us, you're not our friends, or lead them
You're
to water
against
and
them.
drink a horse or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get the point. Yeah, the idea that, like, yeah, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? That's where Russia's taken this, I think.
Well, no, I would suggest it's more than that. It's like Henry Kissinger said, that America has achieved the absolute worst outcome, which is forcing Russia into the arms of the PRC.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. And what do you think, Simon, about the like, just building off her question about the United States? What do you think about extra threat, variables that we have here now with 20 million unknown people from over 140 countries?
Sure. So we've always got the problem of suitcase nukes, assuming that they haven't been here since the 1970s.
Yeah.
And certainly in terms of threat to critical infrastructure, you don't need too many people to put some assault teams together. I always question how good the paid former Walmart greeters currently running armed security on America's nuclear plants, and more importantly, the nuclear waste storage pools are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the jokes aside, though it would be nice to go out with a grin, I suppose, the issue that we have here is that a lot of people are suggesting that Trump make public statements addressed to these parties before taking office. Flynn said this. Flynn's asked for Congress to convene to pass articles of impeachment against Biden for triggering World War III without congressional approval. He's asked for it to be sent straight to the Senate, which obviously is controlled by the Democrats. He's asked for Harris to trigger the 25th Amendment and a whole load of other, equally crazy recommendations, which in his final sentence acknowledges none of which will probably be done. So I really question why he wrote like a 4-page Substack article, which was almost as long as the nuclear doctrine, and then ended it with the straw man argument collapsing by saying probably none of these will be done. I mean, literally, what's the point of that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's just chewing up airtime, because Jones spent an hour going through those points and never ever read the last sentence, which acknowledged that none of them would probably occur.
Great.
I'm trying to be practical here.
Yeah.
So the practical steps are: find Biden in the rainforest, get Kamala Harris off of Lilo. Though technically she's not in the chain of command, right? she's only in the chain of command if Biden is, swallowed by an anaconda, which I did ask. Lined a few kind of like, sample specimens up. That they'd have to smear him in crab paste because I don't imagine he tastes very good.
Yeah, really.
And in all seriousness, the chain of command obviously goes from Biden, in theory, to Lloyd Austin. But as we've frequently seen, both in terms of deployment to Ukraine and also in the Red Sea and also in the Mediterranean in relation to Aardvark land, otherwise known as Israel, they often in the press releases that come out of the Department of Defense say the Secretary of Defense has ordered. And I'm constantly saying, why doesn't it say the Secretary of Defense on the instructions of the Commander-in-Chief or the President of the United States has given the following directions? But they don't do that. It's constantly, just airbrushing Biden from the chain of command. Now, that may be the truth. So is it Lloyd Austin deciding to do this stuff on his own, having consulted the stakeholders in the military-industrial complex? Or is he checking out with George Soros or Klaus Schwab or whatever? Frankly, unfortunately, none of us have the answer to that. But that's an inherent problem in itself as we remain in this hyper-dangerous situation for the next 60 days because Zelensky has said, I've been given permission. He's literally said this today, right, on video. Thank you for giving me permission. Now I need more missiles. So this is not...
He already wants more.
Yeah, it's like Oliver Twist, sir, may I have more, right? And
that 180 billion just wasn't enough to satisfy me. I need some more.
He got when there's that paragraph about resources being given to an aggressor by a nuclear-powered state, that happened today. We gave them another 275 million today after the attack, just to rub salt into the wound.
Wow.
That's been reported in Military Times. I sent the link to Ruckus.
Where's Blinken? Where's he at? Is he causing trouble somewhere? What's going on with that guy?
In the
middle of all this.
Well, Lloyd Austin is actually in the Philippines signing a data treaty with the Philippine Minister of Defense. So he's not even in the Pentagon. And that's a good question. Where is Blinken? Blinken, I think
he's probably he's doing guitar practice, band practice.
No, he actually was in Peru, and then I think he went to the G20 as well as Biden.
That's right, G20.
Because he announced that China, having built a $3.5 billion port to recreate the Inca Highway from Shanghai all the way to the east coast of Brazil, not the west coast of South America, right, was going to be competed with by America, giving them 19 40-year-old decommissioned heavy diesel trains formerly used in San Francisco. Valued at $6.3 million as opposed to $3.5 billion. So not 1%, but 0.2%. 1/500th. That was the American contribution to infrastructure in Peru. And we wonder why we're being progressively booted out of South America.
Right. Oh my God.
1/500th.
Jeez. Now, I heard also that, some months back, we saw these strange PSAs coming out of one of the New York City departments telling people what to do in case of a nuclear attack. And of course, we had the thing that happened in Hawaii with, saying that missiles were inbound. And then it was like, oh, oops. So there's been all this like strategy of tension sort of stuff going. But I saw today that I think it was Sweden and Finland put something similar out to their citizens, what to do in case of a nuclear attack. What do you think about all this weird sort of,
No. It's much more advanced than that. So Germany have triggered their national response plan. So they're telling their transport companies, get ready to start transporting tanks on your 18-wheelers.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, it's not, we're not joking here. It's real serious.
Yeah.
And the communication
Well, okay.
cable from Sweden to Lithuania has been cut, and the communication cable, the internet cable from Finland to Germany has been cut in the last couple of days. And Pistorius is now saying, is this a Russian warning? Are they signaling to us that they're about to attack? I mean, Pistorius is a nutcase. He's the one who said that Germany should more than double its defense spending to 3.5% of GDP.
Wow.
And we just saw this massive exodus take place on X. I don't know if this plays into any of this, but it might, because propaganda is a very powerful tool when things like this go down. So now we have all the libtards all in one place. We got the blue sky thing, and we've got all the crazy Muskian cult far right pro-MAGA people are the only ones left on X, allegedly, according to the official story. We'll see how that all plays out. So I'm not sure how. Do you think that there's been, because there has been a huge politicization? The word I can never say, but they've been splitting this whole argument and this debate and this idea of the Ukraine conflict right along like political lines. So do you think that the fact that there are two separate places where people will be seeking their information from on social media might play heavily into this impending conflict?
Well, the doctrine there does talk about information operations, and that is now a massive concept in NATO. They've rolled out in September, not of this year, but of last year, their AI cognitive warfare system called Merlin, because it operates in the realm of the human mind. And they specifically say that it's designed to deceive the public opinion, not only of NATO's adversaries, but also of its own population.
Well, I'm sorry I asked this question because you now scooped me on something I'm going to be talking about on my next episode of the Daily Ruckus. So if you want to learn more about that, what Simon just said, that will be coming soon on my show. But yeah, great answer. The other question I have, actually not a question, but one of my biggest concerns ever since all of this thing
Sorry, Adam,
started.
but
yeah.
Since I stole some of your thunder there, let me give you another key phrase to look up. Look up
cool.
panopticon junction.
Okay, we'll do.
Panopticon junction. You'll find that
I love it.
Very, very interesting as well.
It sounds like a cool song for kids to live on. Not at all. Panopticon junction. Listen, my biggest concern more than anything, Simon, is that the talking point, from what me and Hesher have been doing for a very long time here with Alternate Current Radio, and since before that, is we focus very much heavily on the narrative, the story that's being presented and played out, and that turns out to be more important than whatever actually reality happens. It's the story, the idea, the narrative that they want to push on everybody, which is usually force-fed upon the public through their third eye via a fire hose, thanks to mainstream media and to a large degree now alternative media as well, and X, etc. Listen, I wouldn't put it past anybody, the West. I don't care who it is. I don't know if it's going to be the United States, the UK, Zelensky, it doesn't matter, whoever the bad actors are. We are in a very dangerous position now where anybody could just like fart and accidentally set off a nuclear weapon, and they could say, Russia did it. You see what I'm saying? I believe that the stage has been set very ripely for a potential false flag. And then what you were talking about earlier, Hesher, adds to my concerns, the fact that we have all of these unknowns here in the country right here, right now, and right before Trump takes over presidency. Trump's already talking about just giving himself, ding, the magic wand, magic powers like they did during COVID in an emergency in the name of fighting immigration. But leave that aside for the moment. We could actually see real-life terror cells, or be told that real-life terror cells are acting on behalf of revenge for Putin, and then they could say, well, see, it's because Putin perceived the fact that we moved a little 2 feet to the left here during a training exercise, and he said, well, see right here, we warned you that was going to happen, and look what he did. He wiped out New York, but it wasn't really Putin. Do you see what I'm saying? The false flag things are endless. I don't know, just me rambling. I hope I'm wrong.
Don't forget, people should read about Vault 7 and the CIA having the technology to misdirect forensic investigations so that people think, oh, this cyber attack came from China, and actually it came from Langley.
Yeah, we
Shit,
had
they're taking down the Internet archives now, dude. I
Yeah,
mean, they can
even
just
the-
straight up shut down the Wayback Machine and do whatever the F they want for 3 weeks. So it's getting scary, people.
Or people might want to read or watch the movie The Book of Eli as well, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent movie. We had John McAfee on the show when Vault 7 came out, and he talked at length about exactly that, the whole scam of Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear and Russia interference and Moldavian 20 somethings with their little side ads on Facebook and all that. I mean, it's a complete grift, and we're totally vulnerable to that kind of false flag activity.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, anybody can do anything, blame it on anybody else, and the world ends. So it is very, very tense, to put it mildly. We don't have the good lines of communication that we had even during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it is very, very alarming that the threat matrix for the Russians has been greatly expanded. And I think that with you gentlemen having been very diligent with your marker pens, you've got enough material for the next 1 or 2 weeks just to have other guests on and say, when they said allies 12 times, what do you think the list is? When they say, direct energy weapons, what do you think they meant then? When they said space attack weapons, what do you think you meant then? I'm certainly not dictating how you run your station or your shows, but hopefully I've given you a lot of additional material to work with for the next few days.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely be tossing this around amongst ourselves and our colleagues here. Simon, I want to thank you so much for your diligent work and in bringing this to the boiler room tonight. One last question. Kimberly again in the chat says, any advice for Americans? Is there anything practical, us normal sandwich eaters can do?
Well, according to the British Civil Defence Guidance, you should wrap your bread for making sandwiches in paper so it doesn't get covered in nuclear fallout.
Okay. All right, will do. Check. Noted.
And I'll offer some advice from the one of the second greatest book of wisdom, the number one greatest book of wisdom being the Bible, the second greatest book of wisdom being the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and make sure you have a towel. That's all I'm going to say.
Don't forget to bring a towel. The Apocalypse World War III. Don't forget to bring a towel, says Towley. Also, all right, Simon, tell people once more where they can find you on the socials and on the web.
So on X, I'm at Simon from Flory, FLORI, and the number 2. But I must caution people, this is a literally, child safety warning. My stream that has about 100 original and retweet stories on it from a vast array of collated sources is exceptionally depressing. It really is bad news all day long. And so I suggest to many people, and I appreciate this is counter to me, monetizing or getting 1 million followers, but you might just want to dip your toe in twice a day at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. or whatever, because it is literally challenging. It is, and I'm quite serious about that. So otherwise, I do a daily show, which is depending upon other business needs and our personal commitments, either normally at 7 p.m. New York time, so that's 7 p.m. Eastern District time. And the channel is weaponizenews.com, and that's on X as well. Website, we're broadcasting on 7 social media platforms. So we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Rofkin, we're on Odyssey, we're on Rumble. We were on Twitch until they banned use of the word Zionist, which I tend to say, even though I often use the word aardvark instead, just so we don't get banned. And so people are most welcome. Those are live. They're free, though we do ask for donations. We just very successful with our full fundraising campaign. And alternatively, people can go back after the fact and view them as podcasts. On Saturdays, on average, every other week, we put out a 1 to 2 hour deep dive, like I've done with you tonight, with a varying degree of humor and some occasional bursts of music in the form of a documentary. So we've been working a lot on the new world order. And when it comes to reading extensive documents, for example, we have gone through the Chinese Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and all 27,000 words of the Global Civilization Initiative that nobody else, to my knowledge, has ever read. And so we do have a good working knowledge of the schemes that the Chinese are up to, which are a joint scheme with the Russians going back almost a decade. These are not new plans, these are new implementations.
All right. Yes. And we'll put links to all your social medias, website, everything like you just laid out. We'll have that on our show page, which will be up at alternatecurrentradio.com shortly after this broadcast closes out. Simon, thank you.
And if I may, just to
go ahead.
double down, because I will vouch for this, because guys, I'm Ruckus. I do my own thing. I do my own news. I make my own shows. I produce my own content. I find what Simon does alongside Sam Chaney at Weaponized News an invaluable resource to me as somebody who's trying to keep track of all this stuff. So that's huge. So please, if you've not checked out their work, please do. You'll absolutely love it and appreciate it. Don't let them scare you. I know you guys are mature and can handle all the black pills. It's not that bad. They got a live chat community going on. You might even recognize some of the same names that you see hanging out in some of the other chats. So please, again, we'll have the links to all his stuff. That's why I was pleased that he was able to join us. He recently was on with Patrick Henningsen on a Sunday Wire. Hopefully we'll get him on to do that again in the very near future as well. But in the meantime, he's out there producing great content. Definitely follow his X. Holy moly. You could wake up from a coma and just scroll through his X feed and you're all caught up. You'd be like, I'm good. I know what's going on. So thank you again for joining us, Simon. And I'll give it back to you, Hesher.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Simon. We really appreciate it. And we'll get your links out there and we'll stay in touch, man. We'll do this again real soon. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
No, but I would impress upon the audience for appreciating the service that you're providing. And I'm not saying this in a patronizing way, but actually being nimble is incredibly important. So the fact that you were able to pull this together at a couple of hours' notice and make the effort of reading the source documents and verifying that I wasn't making stuff up, which is an important task in and of itself, that verification, both exemplifies your professionalism and also the timeliness of your broadcast. So thank you very much.
Oh, no, the pleasure is all ours. Thank you, Simon. Appreciate those kind words and appreciate your diligent work also. And we'll talk to you again real soon, my friend.
Goodbye.
All right, there he goes, Simon from Florida. Wow, Ruckus, thanks for everything you did helping set this up today, and look forward to posting this into the podcast stream so that it can go far and wide. And what we need you to do out there watching this is to help us do that, help us promote it. So if you see our Facebook link, any of our X links, whatever, you want to text our web post for this episode to a friend or a family member or someone sitting next to the bar at you, whatever. We really appreciate that. And at this point, we're very much listener supported. Once again, Ruckus and I had cool gigs at TNT and we were able to kind of self-sustain for a couple of years there, but we're back to needing your help. So if you want to help us out here at Alternate Current Radio, we do have a support link up there at the website. And again, huge thank you to our patrons over there at patreon.com. And those of you that have tipped the swear jar at all this year or ever, we really appreciate you. And if you've been thinking about doing that, it's a great time to do it. It helps us be able to do things like this rather than other things we could be doing to try to wrestle some fiat out of the insane matrix that we're all living in here. So that's how you can help us. And of course, subscribe. It helps if we can build our subscriber base, comments, all that good stuff. Big thanks to everybody out there commenting on the Rumble, on the YouTubes, at the Rockfin, on the Spreaker, on the X, and in all the comment categories. After the live show closes out, we really appreciate you. Thanks for being here with us. Ruckus, Saved Rounds, final thoughts. Over to you.
let's not do this, guys and gals, boys and squirrels. Do we have to do World War III? I don't think we have to. I mean, I thought I was going to get to see a fake alien invasion in my lifetime. So I can't do that if we have World War III and everybody goes poof. So let's not do this. Let's please try to raise awareness about this. I mean, because honestly, I mean, I believe firmly that the reason that we're all able to talk like this and hang out and do anything post-pandemic is because we actually pushed back. There were enough people who actually said, you know what, F this shit. We're not doing this. Screw you. We see you. If it wasn't for that, we would be in a different situation. And the powers that be know that. So we have to keep doing this. We have to keep spreading the word. It's going to get harder. It's going to get harder. I'm just going to leave it there. For more about that, we'll discuss that on my own program, The Daily Ruckus. Yeah, I mean, things don't look good. They look worse than maybe they did when you woke up and you first heard the news. Apologies for that. But yeah, if you're a spiritual person and you believe in all that, pray. That's all that's left at this point, because I think we've really crossed the line here, and I hope we just can wake enough people up, make them understand what's at stake and who's to blame. That way, they know that we're watching them. The cockroaches know all eyes and flashlights are on them. Thanks for having me, Hesher. May God bless each and every one of you. May God save this republic. Ruckus out.
All right. Thanks, Ruckus. And thank you once again for being here with us for this live broadcast. We appreciate you very much. I'll echo what Ruckus said. With World War III, no thanks. No thanks. We're not interested in it. We're interested in having a somewhat normal Christmas with no social distancing, no masks, none of that stuff, no coercing into doing this or that medical product. That's kind of what we're looking forward to. So let's keep focused on that and have a wonderful holiday season instead of nuclear rapture, goat vomit, and gas masks. All right, Hesher out. See you next time.
That's it. Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.